Hey, this is Rob Beardsley. Today I wanted to make a video about a post I saw on LinkedIn recently about factoring in refinancing in your model, in your pro forma assumptions. And the question was asked, how do you treat this in the model? Should you do it? Should you not do it? Some people I've heard say, if a refi is modeled and factored into the business plan, run the other way. It's an inexperienced sponsor, or they're trying to manipulate the numbers, and you should just run the other way. And so I don't fully agree with that, but my personal opinion is that refis generally create more confusion and lead to more questions than necessary. So in my opinion, the solution is, if you, let's say, have a bridge loan that's a 36-month initial term, it's best to underwrite to a 3-year term. And what we specifically do is, if we are underwriting a bridge loan for our acquisition, then we will typically underwrite to a 3-year hold to be coterminous with the loan term, as bridge loans are typically 36 months. Whereas if we are underwriting permanent financing, whether it be a floating rate Freddie Mac execution or a Fannie fixed, we'll typically underwrite that to a 5-year term. So that's the two distinctions we make. We don't typically like to use a bunch of different hold periods, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10. We like to keep it as consistent as possible so it's easier to compare apples to apples. But going back to the refi, it's, when you factor a refi into your assumptions, now you have all these extra questions to answer from your investors. Your investors are likely going to be confused. They're going to ask, how much capital do you anticipate returning? Well, what if you don't get the valuation that you want on the refi? What if interest rates are higher? What if, lenders aren't lending at the same loan-to-value ratio? Which are all valid questions, and there are real realities and risks that you're taking when you are executing, let's say, for example, a bridge loan, which is the more common scenario where you would be having a refi in the near term. Yet, nonetheless, you don't want to factor those in because, again, now you're making extra assumptions that can be criticized by your investors. So keep it simple. Underwrite, if you have a bridge loan, underwrite to a 3-year hold or even a 2-year hold. My recommendation is not to use a 2-year hold, because that's a very short amount of time to just assume you will execute your full business plan and be able to realize a sale. So more realistically, 3 years is the sweet spot, where it's a pretty credible thing to say that, hey, while we think we can execute our plan in 12 months, maybe 18 months, we're factoring in a longer stabilization time as well as a longer hold period to fully execute our business plan. And another point on that is, when you're talking about such short hold periods, your IRR becomes extremely sensitive to the hold period, and your equity multiple is not going to look very attractive. And so investors are typically not just looking at an IRR bogey, they're also concerned with equity multiple. So obviously, the longer you hold a deal, the more cash flow is going to be received, and then you're going to also receive the profits upon sale, which are all going to be factored into your equity multiple. So naturally, a 10-year hold will have a larger equity multiple than a 3-year hold. But with that being said, if you're projecting a 2-year hold with a 1.2 equity multiple, or 1.3, that's essentially 15% annualized returns, which are attractive. But to an investor mentally, they're typically looking to double their money in 5 years or double their money in 7 years, and you have to be cognizant of that. Similarly, your IRR can be scrutinized. If you're underwriting on a 2-year hold, you could, investors could look at it and say, oh, well, you're just trying to juice up the IRR with a short hold period, rather than maybe showing a more honest underwriting at 3 years or a 5-year hold.